Not only do most Americans believe that money can in fact buy happiness, a new study reveals exactly how much money they think they need in order to be happy. For most people though, financial freedom is not as simple as a high net worth. So we'll get to that as well. But according to this study that was published by financial planner Empower, which leads me to believe you should take the results of this study with a grain of salt. Okay, 6 in 10 Americans, which is 59%, including 72% of millennials and 67% of Gen Z, say that money can in fact buy happiness. If financial happiness had a price tag, the average person believes it amounts to $1.2 million. So that's not yearly salary, just in terms of generating wealth, having wealth. 1.2 million is apparently the figure that most Americans believe would make them happy. Now, according to the adults who participated in this survey, what comes to mind when people think about financial happiness are as follows, and this is in the order of importance, okay? Number one, it gives you freedom, right? It gives you security and also relief. So freedom, security, relief. But it is a little more nuanced than that when you look at how the results of this survey are broken down. So let's take a look at that graph, okay? Because it shows you that fewer than 1 in 5 respondents, or just 17%, said that financial happiness is defined by reaching a certain net wealth. Meanwhile, about 2/3 associated financial happiness with an on-time bill payment and debt-free status. 54% also said enjoying everyday small luxuries without worry is what would give them happiness. And finally, 45% said that owning a home would give them happiness. So that makes a lot of sense to me. Look, I think most people just want to live a life where they're not constantly stressed out about their personal finances, where they're not worried about creditors, where they're not worried about whether they're gonna have enough money to make their mortgage payment or pay their rent on time. It all makes sense. I think the numbers that are coming up in this survey are really interesting. The 1.2 million in wealth and how much money Americans think they need to make yearly in their salary in order to be economically stable and happy. We'll get to that in just a moment. But what are your thoughts so far, Cenk?
Yeah, I've got a lot of comments about the numbers as well. And there's 2 more amazing numbers we're gonna share with you guys in a second. But first, do you need money for happiness? So if you've ever been poor, you know the answer is yes. So whenever I see a speech of someone saying, "Oh, money can't buy you happiness. You don't need money at all," I know for a fact that that's a person who's very wealthy. Okay, so now does that mean you should be obsessed with money? No, it does not mean that. What you need is balance, guys. So if you're poor, as I was for a long, long time, you know that you need money. Otherwise, you can't eat. You can't pay the rent. So only rich people get to say, you don't need money. That's because they've never dealt with not having it, right? So now, having said that, once you get beyond a certain threshold, then people become too obsessed with money. It doesn't buy you incremental happiness. And there is no magic point where you get there and you go, okay, now I'm happy. I've never seen it happen. And by the way, I've interviewed now, hundreds of people throughout my career, and I've asked really rich, really famous, really powerful people. I always ask them the same question. Hey, when you got to that pinnacle, did it work? Did it make you happier? Almost no one answers yes. So it's a mirage. That's not what makes you happy. So the answer is definitively yes and no. And it's all about thresholds, which brings us to the numbers. 1.2 million, I'm surprised at how high that number is.
Really?
That's interesting, and I was curious what your take was.
We live in a country that has a broken healthcare system, and if you get diagnosed with cancer and you don't have the right health insurance coverage, you could very easily burn through money like that.
No, yeah,
let's keep it real. Like I know people think I'm rich because a stupid website that has absolutely no information about my salaries thinks I'm worth $2 million. I'm not.
They just make that stuff up.
They just make it up, yeah. Obviously, I work for a private company. My salary is not public. No one knows what I'm worth.
They had the same salary for me, same wealth for me for like 10 years. I'm like, wait, you made it up in the first place, but did I never get a raise?
So look, I don't have anywhere near $1.2 million in wealth. However, I will say this, even if I did, I would still feel a little uneasy, right? Like I do feel a great deal of unease thinking about What if I don't have enough saved for retirement? What if I get fired or I lose my job when I'm in my 50s, living in a country that like practices age discrimination in the workplace on a regular basis, right? And I'm not able to find gainful employment after that. Like all of those issues are constantly in the back of my mind, leading to a great deal of anxiety. And so $1.2 million, yes, is a lot of money. I'm not minimizing that. But there are so many things broken in our society today. The lack of, again, a well-functioning healthcare system, a safety net that picks people up when they fall and find themselves in hard times. Like, you can burn through that money very quickly. And keep in mind, there's another issue that's really hurting Americans right now across the country, where let's say you are fortunate enough to own a home, but a natural disaster hits, you lose everything. And insurance companies have stopped providing coverage in certain parts of the country because of extreme weather events, whether it be hurricanes in California, because of wildfires. So you lose your home, in some cases you lose your home, you're on your own. All of these things concern me, to say the least. And maybe I'm being a little too neurotic right now by bringing these issues up. But I really want to emphasize, in today's economy, $1.2 million in wealth sounds like a lot, but all it takes is one disastrous event for you to lose everything.
Right, I understand all that, and that makes sense. And that's why I was curious about the number, the reactions to the number. Curious what your guys' reaction is too. But I still think that given how much the average person makes, 1.2 million is a giant number. So that's why I was surprised that it was that high.
Right.
But I want to give you the numbers about millennials and men versus women, because those are also amazing.
Okay, so let's get to that. So 71% of the respondents said having more money would solve most of their problems, and nearly a third, 32%, said that gaining just $15,000, an extra $15,000, would have a meaningful impact on their lives. That number increases to 42% when asked about a $25,000 gain, okay? And look, just think about it. Think about how much the bolstered unemployment benefits during the coronavirus pandemic improved the financial health of households all across the country. Because Americans, for the first time, were making, first of all, they were making more money through the unemployment benefits than they were through their jobs that had been underpaying them thanks to stagnant wages since the 1970s. But think about it, they paid down their debt. Savings had increased dramatically during that time. What also helped was the fact that there were shutdowns and businesses were not operating. But once the economy opened up again, these people also dramatically stimulated the economy. You know what I'm saying? So keep that in mind. So none of this surprises me, but let's get to the millennials and let's get to the differences between men and women when it comes to how much wealth they think they need. So it's interesting because according to the survey, what men estimated in regard to how much they need in order to be happy was very different from women. So with regards to salary, the average price tag Americans put on happiness was $284,167 per year.
That is so big.
With men's price point, $381,000 a year, much higher than women's, who said an average of $183,000 a year.
That is a $200,000 difference in perception between men and women. That is enormous. I'm surprised at how high all those numbers are. But get a load of the confidence of men that they're like, I need $381,000. Whereas women are like, I'm good with 183.
Not me. Okay. I want more than that.
Yeah, well, you're a confident woman and that makes sense. Look, on the 15,000 or 25,000 making a difference, of course. The federal minimum wage, if you work a whole year, you don't take a single day off, is $15,000 a year. There's decades where $15,000 to $25,000 would have doubled my salary. So yeah, that's gonna make a big difference. And then finally, I wanna read you this because I'm stunned by it. Millennials listed the highest salary price point of $525,000, with Gen Z saying $128,000, Gen X saying $130,000, and boomers were the lowest at $124,000.
Well, boomers be retiring.
Yeah,
you know
so I get it, and they come from a different time, so their sense of money is like skewed a little bit. But millennials, Jesus, how rich do you want to be? They're the ones driving up all the numbers. Look, finally, the last thing that is not on any list, but that's on mine. I agree, freedom's number one. And those small little luxuries, we all want them. Number two, I'm keeping it real. I'm not an angel.
People like small little luxuries.
They do. But number three for me is generosity. Because when you don't have money, it's hard to be generous. But when you have money, you can actually be decent to other people and be more generous. So that's why that would be another good reason to make more money. But we should all be so lucky. If you enjoyed this video, that's because of our members. They make us independent, they make us strong, and they make us honest. Become a member today by hitting the join button below.